right, so we know the function of the digestive system. So that you have one-way processing of nutrients. It's kind of considered in a way the body exterior, but it's kind of ridiculous. But so your alimentary canal or digestive tract running from your mouth all the way to your anus. So one-way processing of nutrients. So it's your inner tube. So you have the tube within a tube design as far as your trunk goes. So kind of considered the body exterior, even though it's interior. Well, what are the organs involved? So we have the actual digestive tube itself. So we're going to go with your oral cavity to your pharynx. Basically oropharynx to laryngopharynx. Then we're going to go esophagus. Stomach. Small intestine. Small intestine has some divisions. The first part is called the duodenum. Jejunum and the ileum. The duodenum is just a very small percentage, like 10%, something like that, of your small intestine. But that's where everything interesting happens. That's where a bunch of digestive enzymes are secreted, things like that. Then we're going to go your large intestine or your colon. Okay. The colon has different divisions. Ascending is the one part. Transverse colon. Descending colon. Sigmoid colon. Finally, we're going to go into like rectum, anal canal, all that, out the other end. Internal anal sphincter, external anal sphincter. Well, you have some different things that can happen. You have mechanical breakdown, chemical break. Well, mechanical breakdown and there's chemical breakdown, but it has a different name. So your oral cavity, you can have mechanical breakdown of food happening. And then there's some chemical breakdown. Your esophagus, well, your pharynx, so the oropharynx through to the laryngopharynx, food's going to get channeled down your esophagus, which is posterior to the trachea. Moves to the stomach. The stomach is churns and does some mechanical breakdown. And there's also chemical breakdown. Items get squirted in your small intestine, specifically the duodenum. Then a bunch of digestive enzymes are secreted into the duodenum. chemical breakdown. And then throughout your small intestine, there's also a mechanical breakdown that happens. And then through the rest of the small intestine after the duodenum and all that, it's just absorption of nutrients. So the small intestine, that is where most absorption happens. By the time we get to your colon, just water reclamation. Very few nutrients are actually absorbed in your colon. Whatever is indigestible couldn't be broken down through mechanical or chemical means. It goes out the other end. Well, these are the main organs. We have accessory digestive organs. Accessory digestive organs would include your salivary glands. And you have 3 different sets of salivary glands. Your pancreas is an accessory digestive organ. The exocrine function of the pancreas. Your pancreas is responsible for manufacturing a large proportion of the digestive enzymes that get squirted into the duodenum. Your liver is an accessory digestive organ. Indeed, it's the largest gland in your body. The liver produces bile. You also have your gallbladder. Gallbladder stores bile. It does not make it though, the liver does. And your teeth and tongue. Okay, tongue manipulates food, teeth involved in a mechanical breakdown. So these are the key players we have written right here. Well, basically your oral cavity, your esophagus, your oropharynx and laryngopharynx have a specific epithelial lining. So we're talking about your oral cavity, the interior oral cavity. Oropharynx. Laryngopharynx. And esophagus. The epithelial lining is stratified squamous epithelium. As soon as we get to your stomach, I'll just say small intestine and use large intestine. It's all simple columnar epithelium all the way through. a feature that's present on the columnar epithelium, simple columnar epithelium in your small intestine, is microvilli. Increases the surface area for absorption. Now, when we get to your anus, okay, we're going to switch back to stratified squamous epithelium, abrasion resistance. Now, throughout your alimentary tract, your digestive tube, it's referred to as the mucosa. There's some specific layers. So we have a specific arrangement that's present. Okay, a mucous membrane throughout. So we're gonna have goblet cells, we're gonna have little glands that secrete mucus, all that. So we need lubrication happening as goodies move through. So it's called the mucosa, and we'll look at the histology of it. One thing about the your digestive tube is it has a mind of its own. We have what's called the myenteric nervous system, or rather the enteric nervous system. Let's just go for enteric and get rid of the myenteric. Really, it's part of the autonomic nervous system, but how your heart just beats, how's the sinoatrial node, the pacemaker, and the heart beats constantly. It can be slowed down, or sped up. That can happen with the heart. The digestive tract, your digestive system, it's always going. It can't be turned off. We can just turn the volume up or turn the volume down. So the parasympathetic will increase digestion, the sympathetic inhibits digestion. And there are all these nerve plexuses, there are plexi, in your digestive tube in the walls. And it actually has reflex arcs that never even go to the spinal cord at all. So there'll be a stimulus, it gets integrated in a ganglion, and then it sends out a response without ever going to the spinal cord, which is pretty bizarre. So as far as your digestive tube and the autonomic nervous system goes, it's a good example that the autonomic nervous system truly works on its own without you really commanding it. So right about this time, I just realized I didn't finish the muscles of ventilation, or the last bit of chapter 22, but that's okay. We'll do the digestive tract and then come back to it. Let's not look at that. Okay, so let's pull this up and have a look at it. Okay, your digestive systems, your alimentary canal, mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine. Accessory digestive organs, teeth and tongue, gallbladder, salivary glands, liver, and pancreas. So the accessory organs, these ones, connected to the alimentary canal by ducts. So there's secretions, digestive enzymes, things like that that get secreted to break down foodstuffs. Here we have it. A general overview. Right, so salivary glands, you have 3 of them, all paired. The parotid, it means like near the ear. Para is near and otid, odic, ear. So the parotid salivary glands are big, laying on top of masseter, and they're right in front of your ears. And there's the parotid salivary gland ducts. Empty into your, like where your molars are, in the maxilla. Sublingual glands are under your tongue, and submandibular glands are under the mandible. All right, through the pharynx, food goes down the esophagus, into the stomach, into the duodenum. Oh, I spelled eugenum wrong on the previous slide. I put an E when it should be a U right there. So watch out for that. Okay, so we have the different parts of the small intestine, then we have large intestine. The ileum is gonna connect to the large intestine. You have the ileocecal valve. Ileocecal valve, so we go ileum, and then the large intestine. Ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, and anal canal. Anal canal, we're going to see stratified squamous epithelium. Okay, so the peritoneal cavity. We know the serous membrane in there is the peritoneum. Okay, the parietal peritoneum lines the abdominal cavity. The visceral peritoneum is on the organs. Well, all these digestive organs, abdominal viscera, they are not floating in fluid. They are suspended, held in place by divisions of the visceral peritoneum. So they're not just sloshing around. So the peritoneal cavity has all these divisions. Okay, yeah, it's lubricating and there's antibodies and all that. Okay, so here we have it overall. Peritoneal cavity in the peritoneum. So what's red is the parietal peritoneum. You see the red lining the abdominal cavity. And what's blue is the visceral peritoneum. But we have all these different divisions. Okay. So what we have are called mesenteries, but the mesenteries have different names. So the mesenteries are double layer of peritoneum. They hold the abdominal viscera in place. Fat gets stored in them. So I don't know what, visceral fat. There could be fat around your heart too. Okay. So it holds organs in place. There's fat. And basically there's the blood vessels and nerves. They travel through the mesenteries to reach the target organs. So you don't have arteries and veins just floating around in your peritoneal cavity. They're all routed via mesenteries that suspend and hold the organs in place. It's kind of like a vacuum cleaner hose that has the wire going through it. It's exactly like that. Okay, so all hell breaks loose with the mesenteries. We have ventral mesenteries and dorsal mesenteries. It's just, where is the mesentery attached to? Where is it sort of originating? Okay, so your liver has a major, it's called a ligament, but this is not a ligament like you would think of a ligament. So the ventral mesenteries, there's this falciform ligament, and it is on top of the liver. It's a ventral mesentery. What it does is it anchors the liver to the diaphragm and to the anterior abdominal wall. So the falciform ligament anchors the diaphragm. Here we have it right there, falciform ligament. So you can see the falciform ligament on the liver there. So this will anchor the liver to the diaphragm. Let's see. There we go. There's our diaphragm. Okay. Diaphragm's convex. Its normal state is to be curved. So the falciform ligament anchors the liver onto the diaphragm. All right. Now another ventral mesentery running from, here's the stomach. The stomach has two curvatures. The lesser curvature is right here. Lesser curvature of the stomach, and then the greater curvature. Greater curvature, so lesser curvature. There is a mesentery called the lesser omentum. And it's right here. Okay, here it's saying the hypogastric ligament. I'm gonna claim it's the lesser omentum. So the lesser omentum runs from the lesser curvature of the stomach up to the liver.
Is it just like a sheet looking thing?
Yes. Yep, it's a mesentery. It's visceral peritoneum, basically, double layered. Okay, so we just saw the falciform ligament and the lesser omentum. So you see the lesser omentum running from the lesser curvature of the stomach up to the liver. Now we have dorsal mesenteries. These dorsal mesenteries, they originate in the posterior abdominal wall, but the parietal peritoneum. Dorsally, we have one called the greater omentum. It's a major one. The greater omentum is like a fatty apron that's draped over your viscera in the front. We can see the greater omentum. It's like in these virtual like anatomy software programs, the greater omentum is like pretty much one of the only mesenteries shown. Unfortunately, these programs suck for looking at all the mesenteries. Here's the greater omentum. So it's a fatty apron. You see it right here. There it is lit up, greater omentum. So it's draped over your viscera. It's attached dorsally, but there it is. So it's running from pretty much the greater curvature of the stomach, drapes down, and then passes back and attaches to your posterior abdominal wall or parietal peritoneum. So that's the greater omentum. I'll hide it. And that's it. We're out. Okay. Looks like the Joker. Okay, so all right, we have a few other mesenteries. All right. Well, if we lift the greater omentum up, so just pay attention to what's in red here. Hone in on that. If we lift the greater omentum up, where the transverse colon is, there's the transverse mesocolon. And that's suspending the transverse colon kind of in place. And that's attaching to the posterior abdominal wall. Okay. There's also the sigmoid mesocolon, okay, suspending the sigmoid colon in place. So right here. So that's it, transverse mesocolon and sigmoid mesocolon. What's suspending the small intestine in place is just called the mesentery. So it's the mesentery proper. Mesentery proper suspends the small intestine in place. And that's it. So you can see that there's blood vessels running through these mesenteries. They're all called mesenteries collectively. And what they are is subdivisions of the visceral peritoneum, double layered. You can see blood vessels running through them. These are just the names of the different divisions. So we have falciform ligament, anchors the liver to the diaphragm. Okay. You see the greater omentum right off the bat, suspended, draped over many of your viscera. Okay, the lesser omentum runs from the lesser curvature of the stomach up to the liver. Okay. We have the greater omentum lifted up. We can see the transverse mesocolon and sigmoid mesocolon, and the mesentery proper holds the intestines in place, small intestine. Here's everything at once. Okay, and this is what's good here. All right, so ventral mesentery is the falciform ligament, and then we have the lesser omentum running from the lesser curvature of the stomach up to the liver. Dorsal mesenteries, greater omentum, right here. We have transverse mesocolon. Okay, so that's your transverse colon. Sigmoid mesocolon is not shown, and the mesentery proper. You can see how it's attached to the posterior abdominal wall. That's holding your small intestine in place. Now, some of these abdominal viscera, your digestive organs, they're actually not within the peritoneal cavity. Some portions are referred to as what's called retroperitoneal. So some digestive viscera are retroperitoneal. What that means is they're actually outside of the peritoneal cavity. On their ventral face, they're covered with the parietal layer of peritoneum. They're embedded in your posterior abdominal wall. So they're embedded in your posterior abdominal wall out of the peritoneal cavity. So let's have a look at which ones are like that. Well, if you look at this top picture here, figure, see your pancreas? It is actually embedded in the posterior abdominal wall. It is retroperitoneal. It's not in the peritoneal cavity. The parietal peritoneum is on its ventral surface. Its posterior surface is encased in this kind of fake serous membrane called adventitia, and I'll write that out for you. Adventitia was the outer layer of the trachea as well, and adventitia is the outer layer of the esophagus. The duodenum, the first part of your small intestine, where everything interesting happens as far as secretions and enzymes go, is retroperitoneal. Your ascending colon and descending colon are retroperitoneal. So this is pretty bizarre. And your kidneys, which are not part of your digestive system at all, they are retroperitoneal. They're embedded in your posterior abdominal wall. Shoot, looks like your rectum's retroperitoneal as well. Well, it's located elsewhere. So if you take a transverse section, okay, you can see where the visceral peritoneum is, the parietal peritoneum, the peritoneal cavity. You can see how the kidneys are retroperitoneal. Look over to the right, you can see the descending colon and the duodenum are retroperitoneal. Pancreas, retroperitoneal. You can see how the parietal peritoneum covers the anterior portion of these organs, but the posterior are embedded in the posterior abdominal wall. Their outermost covering is called adventitia. That's what's on their posterior portions. So we're going to look at the general structure, histology of the mucosa, the digestive mucosa.